And then the last thing I would say, and probably the most important thing, I swear founders can't hear it. They just can't hear it. You have to invest in yourself. The word self-care drives me crazy because that's what people told me for 10 years. Self-care, what are you doing for self-care? I'm like, I don't know, leave me alone. I don't have time. Well, of course, sitting on the other side of it, like invest in yourself. And it can be a peer group, it can be a coach, it can be therapy. Heck, for me, it's nature walks and going to the gym now. And just do it because people don't want you to burn out. They want your leadership. So you have to invest in yourself and don't feel guilty about it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and, yes, did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Blakely Graham, the former CEO and co-founder of TaskRay. TaskRay is one of the more popular Salesforce apps. They were there in the beginning of AppExchange and Force.com, building in the Salesforce ecosystem and on the Salesforce platform. It's project management and onboarding for complex post-sale projects that happen to after the sale is done. She and her co-founder grew this to almost $10 million in revenue and then sold it in 2021 to a CEO searcher backed by private equity. It's another way to sell a company, and took time off after that and is on to other things. She talks about her journey growing the business, what was important to them along the way, and how that worked for them, their key inflection points, and the times that she and her founder both had burnouts and had to step away from the business, and how they both recovered. It's a great story with Blakely Graham. Hey, Blakely, welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Oh, hi, Greg. Great to be here today.
Thank you. I listened to a few of the episodes of your podcast with Heather,
Yes.
that you're Not All Business, it's called. And you guys have so much fun. We don't have as much fun on this podcast. It makes us look, a little more boring and nitty
Well,
gritty, talking about
Greg,
software startups. You're not talking about startups anymore, sir.
No, you just have to have your number one competitor on a podcast with you, and you're going to have a natural great energy, right?
Well, you two seem like sisters, but literally she was, we'll talk about your
Yeah.
software company and your journey, but she was one of your main competitors and then you didn't know her
Yep.
at the time?
Didn't know her.
That's crazy.
Met her and I was
Well,
like, this is my doppelganger. Who is this?
it
Parallel
truly is.
lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
And
fun.
are you both in Colorado?
And that was part of like the doppelganger moment. We are both in Colorado. I'm in Boulder. She's in Fort Collins. We are both same ecosystem, same software category, same, we're both moms, same
Yeah.
age kids. Like it was just same. And yet we were number one competitors and, we were taught to not like each other,
Right.
which is and we were female CEOs, which was so rare in that ecosystem. And so it
Does
was
that mean you did not like each other more or less than normal guy
well,
CEOs? Right, yeah.
I think people kind of assumed that, but it was just we just never had a chance to get to know each other.
I
And if
get
had we gotten to know each other, I think we would have really helped each other's businesses in so many ways. And
Oh,
so,
fun.
it's just it's like a fable, a moral, something where we've learned like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to
I
cut
think there's
this
a
because
little
I
of the
just
nature versus nurture question about entrepreneurs. You guys look similar, right? The same
Mhm.
area, all the rest of that stuff. So how fun is that? Well, we're here to talk about your adventure, which you
Mhm.
grew the hard way, bootstrapped, and for
The
a long
hard
time you
way.
built,
That was the fun way,
yeah,
Greg.
the
The
fun
hard
way.
way.
Well, I don't know, like it's all hard. So you pick your path. And the quote easy way is VC funded, right? Everybody thinks it's easier. It's technically not,
No
probably.
way.
But you built TaskRay, you had a whole gang of employees there, and you
Mhm.
eventually sold the company. And now you're moved on from that adventure here. So let's start with what is or was TaskRay,
Mhm.
during your tenure? It's been a few years already.
It's been a
But
few years.
maybe it's changed or something like that. But what is TaskRay? Who's it for? What does
Mhm.
it do?
Yeah. So TaskRay is a project management app built on the Salesforce ecosystem, Salesforce platform, I should say. And we focused primarily on that problem where you close a deal and then you have to magically deliver your deal. You have to
Right.
implement your deal. You have to onboard your deal. You have to do something. Like, what happens between sales and the next step? And so our whole reason for being was, hey, let's go in and help our customers who have just sold their deals to their customers, and let's help them onboard them. And so it looks a lot like project management,
Yeah.
but it's just a particular flavor of project management. It's a very customer forward, customer focused project management.
So and it also was on Salesforce and in Salesforce. So you were have your Salesforce leads and pipeline and closing, and then literally goes, switches a field and then turns into now we have to implement this. So
That's
it's
right.
like the logical flow inside the Salesforce workflow, I guess you'd say, or
Yeah, why
the
they
major step.
never put that in there, I'm not quite sure, but they went
Right.
straight from Sales Cloud to what was a Service Cloud, right? And there's a
Yes.
gap, right? There's that
Right.
onboarding gap, and that is the most critical time for
Yes.
anyone in any customer journey. That's like when you teach them your product, you teach them your brand, you figure out how to work together. It's what cements a lifelong potential relationship. So I think onboarding is the most critical step in any type of post-sale process, well before you get to, just servicing or renewing, especially in a SaaS business, right?
Yeah.
Where you're trying to get to those high net retention numbers. You got to onboard them first.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because everybody who bought Salesforce had to be onboarded in a non-trivial way, right?
Non-trivial,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, right. So, and I was in the CRM industry, did it 3 times, including the mid-market, and that onboarding implementation with data conversion and setup workflows and field and custom screens and all that in CRM. So were you mostly for software companies, at TaskRay, or was it all kinds of services companies or with some kind of complexity in there?
All kinds. For
Okay.
sure, we, had some software companies, but I would say the more complex, the better. That was real so one of our customers we had a kind how you, happen into verticals, you didn't mean to happen into verticals, but we happened into, a healthcare vertical. So one of our customers, GE, had big MRI machines,
Oh, sure.
and the onboarding for them was working with the hospitals to implement service, get train up the surgeons,
Oh my
the
gosh. Build a
staff.
room. Yeah, right.
It's a very complex project. Almost feels like a real estate project, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Which that was another niche we had is kind of helping developers kind of get their, all of their subs kind of in line. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different flavors of onboarding and delivery, and I mean, certainly the nice and easy ones were our SaaS customers.
Yeah,
We
okay.
we knew that
Makes
business
it look
pretty well.
easy, right, yeah, to onboard a CRM, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so, lead management and
Mhm.
contacts and accounts and all that stuff in the sales side of Salesforce, and the pipeline, and there's notes and history and okay, and the salespeople think it's really complex, but it must have just multiplied in complexity once the implementation plan to do that GE, CT scan installation was probably whatever,
Yeah.
Gantt charts and steps and templates and, sync meetings and communications and, you know,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, right?
All
Including
kinds of
professional
stuff.
services you would charge for and bill for.
Yeah. Yeah, and we tried to really delineate onboarding from professional services. And
Okay,
so
right.
for us, onboarding really meant the repetitive steps and the steps that really cement that customer to become a lifelong customer. So again, it's
Right.
kind of that more relationship kind of getting to know you. Now, we did all the delivery stuff too. We managed
Yeah,
all the complex stuff, but I think the important stuff is to really kind of foster the connections. And when you think about when you're scaling and your delivery, I used to work for Starbucks way back in the
mhm,
day. And one thing that they just instilled in us is we need to make sure that the espresso you get in Seattle, where Starbucks is from, is the same quality espresso as you're going to get in DC, right?
yeah,
And so as they expanded, how were they going to take their brand and take their quality and make sure that experience was exactly the same when they went from 100 stores to 1,000 stores? And so that's what I think about when I think about the critical parts of onboarding. What what are the most important foundational steps that represent you, represent your brand, that TaskRay can make it easy for all your employees as you scale to deliver those steps. Now, every customer is going to have like special implementation stuff, special
Sure.
delivery. So that's
Yeah.
the complexity part. But how can we make sure we're protecting you as a company and making sure your service and your values scale, right?
And,
That's the way
and
I
is
look at
this
it.
what was the interface? Was there the project manager or the onboarding manager that would use this and track things like a project manager and run around with the clipboard? Or was there everybody could log in and collaborate, and get things done and you had fewer
Yeah.
meetings? What went on with that?
Well, I would say TaskRay circa 2012, we came out the same exact month as Trello. And I remember going,
Oh, right. Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, great." Like, here we are. We thought we were so cool. We were a simple Kanban board. We were very hot into agile project management. And then
Drag and
Trello comes
drop
out.
things
Yeah,
to
drag
different
and
people.
drop,
Yeah, right.
which was unheard of inside
Yeah,
of Salesforce, right?
right.
So we were trying to bring that simplicity to what's kind of a complex problem.
Yes.
Now, that was like circa 2012. Well, by the time we exited in 2021, TaskRay had everything you could imagine, right? It had Gantt charts, it had resourcing. But to kind of answer your question, what I loved the most was we always tried to keep the simple parts or make it feel simple to the experience.
Ah,
So we got really clever with templates and making those super easy for an onboarding specialist to make sure they get the same steps. And the other important part of that
yeah.
is like your onboarding process is going to change all the time, right? It's not like it's totally set in stone. So also making sure there was feedback loops so the onboarding specialist, as the complexity changes or simplifies operationally, they could go back and impact those like templates in a positive way, and that could get disseminate out to the rest of the
Uh-huh.
projects they had in motion. So those are just kind of like nuanced complexities,
Yeah.
but we didn't want to make it one and done, and we always wanted to make it simple for our users. But man, it was powerful and is still very powerful. So.
Okay. And by powerful, you mean you eventually sold to big companies, right? That have really complex needs.
Yeah, we started out with you could only buy us from the AppExchange with a credit card, and then we ended up with, six-figure deals where we in the enterprise markets where you kinda wanna grow up to. It's a lot nicer to have those
Yeah.
six-figure deals rolling in, right? And who knows,
Right.
maybe they have seven-figure deals now. Let's hope.
I'm sure that was part of somebody's slide deck at some
Y
point. And
yeah,
next
right?
step, seven-figure deals. So you sold this in 2021. How big was it when you sold the company? What can you say about how many customers and revenues and employees?
Yeah. Well, I always say that I'm a 0 to 10 founder. So that was the trajectory I left the company on. They are now well past that. Customers, gosh, it's 2026 now, Greg. That's
Yeah,
just
I know.
getting well over 1,000,
Okay,
I
1,000
would say.
customers. Yeah, right. And
Uh-huh.
what can you say something about revenues? You was under 10,000,000, I guess, but like not
We
so
were
much?
just right
Okay, yeah.
there. Yeah,
Okay, great.
we were just right
And
there.
how big was your team roughly?
Well, I want to say 40 when
Yeah.
I left. Yeah, yeah, about 40. So.
Well, that's what CEOs say when they're running a company. I think we have about 40
I
or
have no
maybe coming
idea.
or going, something like that. Well, that's amazing. And so that
Yeah.
was basically a 10-year run for you and the company. And then you sold it in 2019. Who did you sell it to and how did that go?
We sold it in 2021,
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
and,
Uh-huh.
we sold it to it was private equity. However, it was a search fund. That was the term I was looking for, which is nothing I had any experience with. I had
Right.
never heard of search funds. I didn't really understand what a search fund was. And then I did a little deep diving and come to find out it came out of Stanford, I believe. There's a
Sure. Yeah.
really interesting deck you can read or a research paper out of Stanford.
Yeah.
And so essentially, for your listeners that don't know what a search fund is, it is typically an MBA grad with some type of operator experience that is feeling ready for the leadership role, is feeling ready for the CEO role, but they're not necessarily the founder, right?
Right.
Like you've got managers and you can kind of got us crazy founders. So they want the business and they want to take it to the next level, which is great because I was the 0 to 10 gal. I was
Yeah.
not going to be the 10 to 50. So what Search Fund does is they go out, they raise a set of funds. Let's say it's $1 million, and then they get that from their PE backers or their investors, and they use that $1 million to source deals until they find a company to acquire. And the goal is to
So it's
find a
not the investor knocking on the doors, it's the CEO searching,
it's a
right?
CEO
Your
searching.
CEO,
Yeah.
prospective CEO is looking for a company to CEO.
They're looking, and the whole name of the game is they have until they run out of their $1 million or $300,000, whatever, to find their company. Because if they run out, then they're out, right?
Yeah.
It's very traditionally a environment in which they look for mom and pop companies.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big
Lifestyle businesses.
lifestyle. I think there was a mosquito repellent company out of Florida that was like the first big search fund success. So companies more I think are more tactical in nature. Software is not where search funds used to sit. I think that's where they're sitting now, and I think we were one of the first, and it made for a
Ah.
very awkward long deal.
It's atypical. I've seen it a few times with people I know, and, you know,
It was a lot.
yes, it's just one of the paths out there. We don't hear about it very much. So you're the first one on the podcast out of almost 200 founders who has, sold to a CEO searcher that was private equity backed. Usually it's not like institutionally backed. It's a bunch of rich people with checks that send this kid out to go find something to,
Yeah, it was
turn
a kind of
around. Yeah,
combo. There's two larger private equity firms that are originated as a group of people that have sold to like a search fund,
I see.
essentially.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's
Okay.
interesting, but like I said, software wasn't there necessarily their experience. It was a very long and complicated deal, but very favorable in that search funds typically, because they're taking over like legacy businesses, they don't mind a longer hold time, which in turn can mean better than typical valuations that you
Oh,
might
great.
see to a PE sale. So it worked out for everyone in our
Oh,
case.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations on that. Did you do a transition period after that?
Yes, I guess a little
Here's the
bit.
keys, right? Yeah, left the keys on the table.
I was done, Greg. I was burnt out as you can get. Here's the thing about a search fund in particular. They know what they want. They know how they want to lead. They're coming in with an expertise. They want to be in charge.
Yes.
So, really, to have your old CEO sitting around is not what they want. So, I was like on his bat dial for emergencies. And so we'd go have some lunches, but he did just fine on his own. He's still doing just
Yeah.
fine. So, but I'm
Yeah,
here for him
it's
when
typical.
he
Yeah,
needs.
the
Yeah.
burnout is a typical thing. This person has been
Mm,
long, in it,
mhm.
and the CEO searchers can't jump into a hot company that's exploding. It's worth too much and they can't buy it, and something that's not growing and won't grow, but like one that has potential, but is a little off its game right now. That's could be a turnaround or a fixer-upper or something like that in their view.
Yes.
It doesn't
Mhm.
always work that way, but I get that. Well, congratulations there. What are you doing now after all of that?
Yes. So let's see, 2021, it took me about a year on a therapist's couch to come out of my burnout. And then it took me a second year to get my health back. And then it took me a third year for my husband and I to look at each other going like, what are we doing? Like we have two high school kids. We're not working. This is ridiculous. And then I started doing a lot of service work in the community. I
Yeah.
was a victims advocate for the police department for a couple of years,
Yeah.
which was very intense in a very different way.
Yeah.
Not sure I'd necessarily recommend that line of work for the burnout folks, but it felt good to finally have time for my community. And then, where we started the conversation earlier, my former number one competitor, she was the CEO of cloud coach, her name is Heather
Mhm.
Cooper, gave me a call via mutual introduction by a woman that I'm advising, another CEO in the ecosystem. And she's like, "You two have to meet each other." I'm like, "That's weird. I don't need to meet
Would
my
that
old
be
competitor."
Stephanie Betters, who I've had on
Ye
this podcast? I
You
saw her
have
name.
not had Stephanie Betters on this
I have,
podcast.
and isn't she amazing?
Best leader out there right
Oh
now.
my gosh. Yeah,
She is something else, something else. I love
she's
her
a
to
force of nature.
pieces. Yes, yes,
Like
I
a heart
love her.
surgery,
Yes,
registered nurse, who
yes.
started a software company in her spare time after doing all the real estate investing to
Mhm.
do this, and then went to the top of that game on the
Yeah.
Salesforce platform. So,
I'll tell
yes.
you, when I started advising Stephanie, she was also bootstrapped, and I was doing everything in my power to keep her bootstrapped like I
Yeah,
was, and she's like, and I'm so glad she didn't listen to me. I was trying to also be open, but it's been fun because I've been able to follow her ride a little bit
yeah.
through a different path than I took, and
So you
so
are an organized, like, board advisor,
Mhm,
therapist,
mhm, mhm.
strategic, helper. Good for you.
That's right.
That's one thing to do. Do you have any inclination to get back in the game and go create another software company, some AI first
Well, so
incarnation?
it's yeah, so no, but my as I've been trying to think through, like, what am I doing? Like, what's gonna keep me busy? I'm always doing something. My husband's like, "You have a disease. You can't go more than a day without that's a better company. How could I do that differently? Could I start that company? Could I
I
make that
know.
more efficient?"
Hard to take off
It's
those glasses.
it's all the time. It's like noise in my head. So when I met Heather, when Stephanie introduced me to Heather, and Heather and I stared at each other over this like 3-hour lunch, and we're like, okay, we look alike. We both, have kids. We both were female CEOs. We laughed, we cried. It was
Yeah.
incredible. And what happened out of that is she's like, "We have got to do something to give back to this community to make
Yeah.
other primarily women, but anyone at any career stage feel like they're not so alone." And so I don't know that I want to start another software company again, but it has sure been fun having a podcast and getting questions from listeners and trying to help them navigate, and I'm not necessarily an advice giver. I'm more of just like, here's our experience. Don't do
Yeah.
that or do this. Or how can we bring on experts to help leaders through some of these really sticky situations? And honestly, Greg, like where we have a lot of fun is when people come to us with really awkward situations because how much happens in the workplace that you don't really feel safe to talk about, Like there's some awkward stuff that happens or imposter syndrome stuff where you're not
Oh, yeah.
sure about and you're too afraid to ask someone a question. So we're trying to create a podcast to help people at any career stage feel safe enough to ask some of those questions. And so that's my business right now. It is still a business. You got to get
Yeah.
sponsors. Producers
Yeah.
aren't cheap.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by my friends at LaunchBay. LaunchBay is built for B2B software companies where client onboarding is hands-on and messy. Think data collection, setup steps, approvals, training, and customization. If you're currently juggling onboarding through email threads, spreadsheets, shared docs, and way too many check-in meetings, LaunchBay pulls all of that into one clear system. It gives both your team and your clients full visibility into what's happening. It automates follow-ups and approvals and helps you onboard customers faster without adding more people or process overhead. Hundreds of practical software companies use LaunchBay to deliver a consistent, professional onboarding experience every time, so customers get value faster and teams stay sane. You can check it out at launchbay.com/practical and get 25% off the first 3 months of any LaunchBay plan. Now back to our podcast. Well, I get it. I plead guilty to helping founders with podcasting and, chatting about all
Yeah.
the fun stuff and the adventure,
Yeah.
and it wasn't, I guess in hindsight, you could say, well, I had a career and I started this software company on the side and we bootstrapped it up and I sold it, for a successful exit and all of that. But, it's a bumpy ride, would you say? You know?
My dad always said, anytime you work on a project in your house, you always have to make sure you have double the time or in double the money, right? So
Hmm.
I would say, let's triple that for any company that you start. It's going to be triple the time, triple the money, and triple the pain than you would have expected. And that is like the bumpy ride. And if you're okay
Yeah.
with that, you're going to be successful. You'll be fine,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's go back here. Were you in the Salesforce world or this onboarding project management world where you discovered this? We need to do this in the Salesforce onforce.com on their platform,
Mhm.
kind of opportunity. How did this TaskRay
Yeah. How
thing
was it
happen?
born? I was I've been in the Salesforce world just about as long as Salesforce existed.
Mm,
So if we go into the Wayback Machine,
yeah,
Salesforce started in 99. I probably
yeah,
got involved with them around '01 or '02, so kind of in their infant
yeah.
stage. And my story is I've always, in every company I've ever been in, I've always been the parachuter, the one that like they send in like, Blakely, can you go fix that? I just have a very operational brain.
Uh-huh.
And we were implementing a multi-million dollar Oracle implementation. Like, you remember those used to be
Oh, yeah.
huge, tens of millions of dollars, 20
Yep.
consultants living in your
Busload,
place.
the old
Oh, it
days.
was
Yeah.
terrible. And the first part of it was to implement it to our sales team, and they were having none of it. It wasn't usable. And we had this rogue not Salesforce, I'm sorry, a rogue VP of inside sales that had just moved from San Francisco. He had heard about Salesforce and he just started implementing it on his own. And I was like, what are you doing? You cannot do
Put
that.
it on a credit card. This is how they snuck
Yes.
into the it market. Yeah. These
Yes.
people
And
just did it because it was way better, this heavy client server
yeah.
enterprise stuff.
So I guess there's a lot to that story, but to keep it brief, the way I ended up fixing this project I was parachuted in to fix is we killed it. We killed it, and we brought Salesforce in, and we went whole hog, and we implemented the entire company. And at the time, we were Salesforce's largest customer. We had
Wow.
125 users.
Yeah.
So just to give you like perspective, that's how long I've been involved in the ecosystem. And then from there, I put out a shingle of my own and did Salesforce consulting. I worked at
And you
One
did
Market
it
with
before there
Salesforce.
was an AppExchange, before there was an API,
Yeah,
before there was a customization platform, and before all of this. I mean, it was a thin and useful,
it was
right?
great.
People could
I
log
loved
in
it.
from anywhere, and they faked having an offline client for a few years, but never really got there. Remember that? And then,
Yeah,
but like, but we think of it now as this big mature ecosystem with
yeah.
100,000
It's like
developers and all these
next Oracle.
AppExchange. But this was just, thin and useful, cloud app when those were
So
very
fun.
atypical.
Very atypical. And so I guess through the next from '01 to 2010, when I started TaskRay,
Yeah.
Salesforce was always a part of my life in some way. I
Okay.
was running marketing teams and product teams, but I always either brought it in or it was just always there. And in my last company that I was in, I was working with my co-founder, Eric Wu, who we brought in as a consultant. And we had such chemistry that one day, as the project was winding down, we were sitting in the conference
And
room and we were like, huh, we got to keep working together. Like, this is something. And he had just come back from 2008 trying to raise a round. You know how like horrible that was. And I had worked at a VC backed company, and we both had not great experiences. They weren't bad, they were formative, but there's just some control you give up at different tranches of investment. And with that control, you don't always make decisions that are people first decisions. And
that
we're
is the
both,
most polite version of that, uh, you know, cluster that falls upon you when you raise big funding or whatever. But yeah, I hear that. I've been there.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
great.
so really, TaskRay was born out of chemistry.
Yeah.
And Eric and I, knowing that we wanted to work together, we knew that we wanted to do something differently. And our dream was, and you could call it a lifestyle dream if you want, but which bootstrap lifestyle, all these things got such bad connotations and it's just
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah.
baloney.
Mhm.
And we our whole thought was like, hey, what if we just had a dozen people working for us and we all made outsized money and we
What everybody's
just,
trying to do now in the AI era. Gee whiz.
yeah, well, that was kind of our dream, but we didn't really have a product. And we were originally called Bracket Labs. We weren't even called TaskRay.
Mm,
And Eric had never worked inside of Salesforce. But he's like, you seem to know this. He goes, and I noticed that they're putting money into something called the AppExchange. It just
yeah,
launched. He's like, I think they're trying to do a platform play.
yeah.
And he's a wise man. And I'm like, huh, interesting. So
Is
we
he a
just
technical person and he was the potential builder, or was he what was he in
we did
relation to your specialty?
not have a technical co-founder.
Oh,
We brought one on who became like a third partner in year 2 of the
I see.
company. And so it became the 3 of us. But no, he was more, I would say, just product and
Yeah,
vision, but product in terms of experience, right?
yeah,
Knowing what we wanted experiences to be like. So he
yeah.
and I sat down on a whiteboard and we kind of thought through all the white space problems of Salesforce, like every little thing that was missing. And we decided it was going to be like a dartboard, right? We're going to just have a lot of ideas and throw darts at them. And we had a couple that hit. We ended up with 3 products, 3 plus 1, I guess.
Hmm.
And TaskRay just happened to be the product that just went
So you built
was
3 of your experiments, right, or whatever,
We
and got
built
them going?
3. And 1 paid the rent. 1 did not pay so much of anything.
Yeah.
But 1
That's an
paid the
interesting way to do it.
rent.
Right. You I mean, it wasn't like a vertical and you saw this problem for 10 years and you said, "I'm gonna go quit my job and build a thing to fill this hole in the industry that I know and love." It was a crazy time, like, cloud was finally exploding, the AppExchange was, exploding, their platform was coming, so you didn't have to raise VC funding to go build, right? It was
No.
one of the first ways to do that, and you could build pretty quickly on top of their platform. They had a lot of plumbing in there you didn't have to build there. So
Yeah.
it's like, like it's a little bit like the AI thing opening up. There's a new reshuffling and an open field to go
Yeah,
after, new categories.
that's a good parallel. I mean, we were napkin sketch to revenue in 4 months. And so if it's kind of you're right, like it's like vibe coding today. Like
Yes. Uh-huh.
we didn't vibe code, but we took a very small discrete problem and applied a very sexy interface on it
Mhm.
and did it very cheaply,
Yeah.
and tested out the market because it was so small, and we were able to get revenue. And kind of the philosophy we've always had is we only grow profitably and sustainably. And so we just kind of
Look at that.
started growing our complexity or building our products more from there. But it's kind of a natural restraint to make sure you're doing things well, right? You're treating your
Yeah.
customers well. You've got your processes baked in. Eric and I each put in a tiny bit of money, and that was it. Everything
Yeah.
else, if you don't include like paying us back, right? That was just like our equity investment. We were profitable from day 1. We had to be.
Woohoo.
You know? Yeah, it was
Wow.
great. And
So,
so
can I
okay.
take you back to hanging out with Eric and saying, "We gotta do something together"? And it
Mhm.
wasn't like you're the technical one, I'm the sales one, like, which is a classic, specialization of co-founders. But for listeners out there, what was the thing that you both recognized? A lot of people do, let's say, co-founder dating, right? What was it
Mhm.
that you recognized about each other that said, we gotta go out on our own and maybe people think we're
Yeah.
crazy and do this together. What was it that you saw in each other?
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it as what we saw because we had chemistry, and that chemistry was really about, like, lifting each other up and getting excited by ideas and kind of what
Yeah.
if, and then translating that. We both had that brain, and then I was able
Mhm.
to operationalize a little
Ah.
bit, and kind of get that going, and he was too. I would say he was more of the finesse and the sales side, so he was so great with customers but really, I think if I really think about what it was is values. There's
Mhm.
just call it our state school chips on our shoulders that we always joked that we had, but we
Okay.
just had the same values. And it's funny, Greg, like it took us, I don't know, like 4 to 5 years into the company before we ever wrote down our values because we were just embarrassed. We didn't want to be those people that had the values on the
Yeah.
wall, which we did.
Your value does not have values, but
It-
you did, of course, yeah.
yeah. But I tell you, the day that we wrote down our values was the day the company's trajectory changed. Like that's what really exploded us. But that is also the chemistry. The values came from who we were as people, and we were so aligned to them. It just, it's why we wanted to have a company. We wanted to create our own rules. We both had young kids. His daughter was born the day we started TaskRay, and we just and I had 2 young babies, and we just like we wanted work to empower our lives, not to be our lives. And where can you go and find a company where that's true? Like you're just told to give so much of your soul, and it just shouldn't be that way, right? Like
Mhm.
your life should be meaningful and like paid and supported by your work. But your work doesn't necessarily have to be the end all be all. And so ironically, for Eric and I starting that company, it ended up being our end all be all because we felt so passionately about that concept that we both burnt out on it. But I tell you what,
Oh,
our employees didn't. Our employees experienced joy and they loved it.
a little
So,
irony there, the burnout phase of having, the lifestyle business.
yeah.
With the core values there. That's awesome here. How did you go about selling to get your first customers, get to your first million? Was this just popping into the AppExchange marketplace for
Mm,
Salesforce apps and
mhm.
was so new that people were kind of feeding on it like the iPhone app store and everything? Or did
Yeah.
you have a network or how did you
Mhm.
get customers and
We kind
reach
of
out?
had, I would say we had 3 different approaches
There you go.
back then, very early, right? So the app exchange for us was very fruitful. I can't imagine there's a lot of ISVs out there saying that now. I
It's
don't
so
kn
big and so crowded, so noisy,
Yeah.
right, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we were perennially we were in the top 10 apps for every year that we were
Awesome.
owned the
Yeah.
company. So that was very fruitful for us. We also invested a lot into the Salesforce community, into the MVP community. Eric and I were both, and Mike, I think too. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. We're all MVPs in the community. I call them like the original influencers. And
Yeah.
so we invested a lot in those relationships, and it was a lot of kind of give and give back. And then I said 3, didn't I? What was the 3rd?
Some inbound marketing, I don't know. So, I don't know. Uh,
That's a good question. I don't really know. There's a 3rd one. But for the most part, we were, user groups. We went out
oh,
to user
sure. Oh,
groups,
yeah. Fly out
things
to
like
the
that.
Salesforce user group and, right,
Yeah.
meet people and everything?
And we were very big on early on like content, evergreen content marketing. So
Yeah.
we wrote a lot of content and thought leadership that was free. And I think back then that was a mind shift. People used to gate their, PDFs of their white papers and no one really wanted to give that stuff away. And Eric was like, whatever, like it's information, give it away. It will come back and help us
Uh-huh.
eventually. And it did. So I remember the 3rd one, Greg. The 3rd one is that it was pure luck and timing that the App Exchange was brand new, and so we just worked with them on all of the things they brought to market. So when the Apple Watch came out with, apps
Oh,
like
you were there. Yeah,
we were
waving your
there.
hand. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
is anyone using TaskRay on an Apple Watch? No. But we leaned heavily into the partnership of Salesforce, and if they needed a prototype for something, we did it. Did it really work out for us all the time? No. Did it
But
work out with
everybody knew about you
press?
inside and outside the building.
Our brand was solid, and so that really, really helped us as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it is one of the benefits. I mean, it's a very practical founder story, right? How about we don't bet our lives and, all of this with venture funding? Let's go our own way and do it our own way. And let's do it as efficiently as possible. That state school chip on the shoulder to, we try harder and grit it out. And
Yeah.
then inside somebody else's marketplace is a very effective way to go to market versus the very expensive ways go reaching
Yes.
customers. Because I presume you really didn't sell to anybody who wasn't using Salesforce, at least in the beginning.
No, not in the beginning, and that became a long question that kept us up at night,
Yeah. 'Cause you
because
bet about this Salesforce ecosystem. You were
yeah, that's your
writing it and
TAM,
surfing it.
right?
Right,
And that's
yes,
like
uh-huh.
and while you're inside of that ecosystem, that is as big as your TAM can get, and
Yes.
so how attractive is that? So you had to make that decision, do we go off or stay in? And the other, thing about a partner like that I would caution people, what else keeps you up at night is they can come and, build what you're doing
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yes.
And they did that plenty of times, and they did. I remember, do you remember do.com? It was I think it was like a Google-based project management called do.com, and Salesforce bought it, spent $1 million on the domain, and we had just launched TaskRay, and I remember sitting on the couch, crying, going
Oh, that thing,
"What are we
yes, right.
doing?" And Eric's like, "Are you kidding me? Salesforce is so slow. They're so big. They're not listening to their customers and what they want with this kind of project management. We're nimble. We've got this. Play to our strengths." And we did, and they
Yeah.
shut it down a year later, and we went all in. So that
What were
was,
your customers telling you in the early days? "We like it, but we want this." Like, where did you get pulled?
I guess, yeah, that's a fork in the road. Um, with first, our first successful product before TaskRay was called Campaign Calendar, and it was just a way to visualize your campaigns on a calendar. That was it. That was all, just drag and drop, and all they wanted was to be able to customize their own colors, and I was so angry with them. I'm like, "What? We have these beautiful colors. We don't need to customize your colors." Like, "That's what we want." And then it took
No,
me a
you don't want
long
that. Yes, right, yeah.
I know, a long time to realize, okay, they're marketers. Of course they wanna customize their own colors. So that was like a big lesson in listening. But TaskRay was a little different. TaskRay was agile project management. Customers wanted Gantt charts and resourcing, and we were like, "No,
The old
we're
way,
trying to."
yeah.
But really, they wanted everything. Project management is so big. It's huge. They just wanted every little feature, and so it started to really make it hard for us to figure out kind of who we were, what is our
Yeah.
ICP, who are we serving, which features are the most important features, and at what point do we have too many features and we're not the cute, sexy, easy to use project management system
Well, it's kind of
anymore.
the project management curse, meaning you build this thing that's cool, and then everybody pulls you into infinite features, and then it
Yeah.
becomes a monster.
Yeah.
Did you solve that or slay that dragon?
We did. In fact, I can remember very specifically, it was 2019. Yes, it was 2019 or 18, 19.
Mhm.
And one of our values was connection. And we were really good at that value internally, but maybe not as much with our customers. And so Eric and I, joined by our head of sales, went out on the road on what I call a listening tour. I think we went to 5 cities, visited 20 customers,
Mm.
and we're like, "Listen, what do you use us for?" Really,
Really?
let's
Yes, yeah.
get down to it. And the whole goal of that is, we're not there to sell them anything. We purposely went to them because we wanted them to feel safe enough to, talk to us on their turf, with no agenda, and we just listened, listen, listen, and Eric had always had this theory that we were bridging this gap between sales and service, you sell something and then you service, but there was
Now
this
what?
kind of, yeah,
Mhm.
now what kind of thing. And he was he was doing all the selling. And I was like, what is that? He's like, I think it's something. And we came away from Project Connection going, it's onboarding. What we're doing is we're helping our customers onboard their
So
customers.
you were onboarding before onboarding was cool?
Onboarding wasn't a word.
It
People
wasn't
looked
even
at
a
us
word,
like,
yeah.
"You're crazy. Don't
Oh
you
my goodness.
bootstrap company go create a category." Like
That's
you're
hard.
crazy. It's expensive is what it is.
Yeah.
But it gave us the confidence to come back to our team and say, "Here are the guardrails. The
Ah,
features need to be for onboarding. They are not going to be for employee onboarding. They're not going to be for professional services. They're not going, it's truly like you've closed the deal. Now what? That's it. It has to
so
go
that's
there.
a
So,
use case. It's not an industry or a company size. I guess there's degrees of onboarding for enterprise and small business or mid-sized business. This
yeah.
was the swim lanes according to what the problem you're solving is and what your customers are really solving and, you know
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It just gave us a unified way to brand, unified way to market, unified way to talk, what our thought leadership. We then invested a lot in customer forums. We put some tools on our website to kind of help people through their, customer onboarding maturity, like things like that to understand
yeah,
and really help people with their own, retention problems and things like that.
yeah,
And funny, our head of sales loved to tell this story, and I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, but onboarding is really about protecting your retention, right?
yeah,
Because you lose a customer in the first 90 days. You just don't know it until their year renewal, but you lose them in the first 90 days. And our retention was fairly atrocious. We were small, medium, that's a hard market to have a good retention in. And we didn't really maybe necessarily get the right ICP. We were all
yeah,
over the map.
mhm,
When we shifted to onboarding and got the right customers with the right positioning, the right messaging, our retention shot up. And it was kind of like its own proof and success story. Not only did, we're helping our customers' retention, we helped our retention, everyone's happy. It was kind of a win-win. So,
I've always said that half of churn retention is who you sell to, right? And,
mhm.
eventually you catch up to, "Oh, we're not selling the people that will stay." All right, and
Yeah.
how did you do that? So, you did that as co-founders there, but did everybody understand that? Because 'Cause you're kind of saying, "No, don't sell that. I won't pay a
Mhm.
commission. N no, don't build those features," despite, somebody asking because it's not in the focus, swim lane. Was that a difficult thing to operationalize?
Yes, it cost a lot of money. We had to hire a firm to come and help us, like, rebrand and
There
reposition.
we go.
We had to. We hired, we put in a coaching contract to kind of help our leaders and
Uh-huh.
our, team at large, kind of come
Ah,
along.
right.
It was a
Change management. Yeah,
major.
right. Mhm.
Yeah, it was a big shift, and not everyone made the transition,
Yeah.
frankly.
What
Um,
do you call that shift? Was that the focus on onboarding, or was that, positioning change or usually that focus moment between, let's say, 1 or 3 million ARR, something like that, between the early ADD startup and the ultimate OCD scale?
yeah, so that was led to, like, our absolute largest explosive growth. I mean,
Yes.
with that shift also came small we went from, an SMB to an enterprise play.
Ah,
Deal size went up. It was I think for the most part, I would call that a positioning, a repositioning
yeah,
and branding shift, but
yeah.
it was an internal and external shift, and it just unlocked the focus for, like, a 2-year roadmap of really focused, solid work, and everyone once you kinda got on board to it, you're like, "Finally, I know what to do. I
Yes.
know how to
See what
prioritize."
happened. Right.
I think we put in EOS at the same time, like, we
Ah.
just grew up, like, it was a maturity shift, focus there's probably nothing greater than having something to focus on, right? It was a guardrail, a
I
big
believe
one.
that, and I've seen it. It happens between every startup and every scale up, right? And not everybody makes
Yeah.
it through that. So
No,
I
not
own the
everyone
domain.
does.
I own the domain Focus to Grow. I was gonna write the
Oh,
book on that, but I didn't do it. But,
if
it
you have time, Greg, you have
I
time.
know all my time there. Well, so, you were adding people as you sold. You sold before
Mhm.
you added people because you were profitable the whole way, right?
Mhm.
You didn't get too far ahead of yourself there. What did it feel like when you were up at 20 or 30 people and like one of the real apps of the, AppExchange in the Salesforce ecosystem? Did you feel like you had achieve something after your focus and things were settling down, or was it always never enough?
Never enough.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Um, I guess I should mention throughout all of this, we had major founder conflict. And I ended up firing Eric in 2019, right after that listening tour. And because we were at a what do you call it? The next tranche. We're
Impasse.
at the next phase.
Okay, next stage. Yeah, uh-huh.
And there was a lot to be done. And he was unhealthy and burnt out. And it was
Yeah,
a really awful thing to do. And but he still owned 50% of the company.
yeah.
So it was just getting him out of the day to day so we could go on the focus and he could find some time for himself to kind of figure out what was going on. And it was really freeing. And yet, going back to it was never enough because now I feel like I had to prove something for him, even
Mhm.
though he
It
was
was all on
gone.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we became very lonely. And as we were going to 20 and 30 and 40 people, I also lost my father during that time, and, he was an operational god. He worked at NASA for 25 years and just was, like, mind-blowing, and so I lost my sounding board, and yeah, it was extremely lonely. The imposter syndrome, like, went nuts,
Yeah.
although I kinda know that's all fake now, which is interesting, so I d but at the same time, it was like our version of a rocket ship.
Yeah.
We were growing so well and that you couldn't really slow down to, like, look at what was happening. But just to kind of make sure everyone on who's listening to this knows that there's actually a great ending to this story. In 2020, if that's when COVID hit, right? When COVID hit, Eric and I were barely speaking to each other. We had to meet, like, 4 times a year at a board meeting, and it was just like, tension. And then COVID hit, and there were so many board decisions to make during COVID. We had the PPP. We had to like, are we going to take a reduction in force? Are we gonna change trajectory? Like, do we
Mhm,
wanna keep an office? Are we shutting down our office? Like,
mhm.
Salesforce wanted us to help them with their COVID plan, which was like the Apple Watch all over again and a distraction that I just fought so hard to get away from. And so when we were going through all that, Eric and I had to talk on the phone almost daily. And it was really interesting. He had done a lot of the therapy work that I wouldn't do for another few years yet. So now he's ahead of me and it just everything softened, and he
Ah,
became my greatest advisor. And ultimately, what happened is at the end of 2020, he's like, "It's your time to go now. Like, you're burnt out, and
mhm.
this company needs someone who's not. So go, take a minute, and then come back." And so he stepped back in. He came back,
Oh,
and then he took over as CEO for that final year before we sold, and it was such a gift,
oh,
and I
wow.
can't believe we got there, and I just know how many bootstrapped companies with co-founders go through founder conflict, and it just became a love story for us. I mean, that
Oh,
chemistry was
yeah.
always there and loved each other so much, and the one advice, 2, 3, I could probably have tons of advice on this, but we were very respectful to each other publicly, and so I think that's important. Like, if you think about when your parents divorce, like, it's always
Mhm.
nice when your parents put a united front even though they, like, can't stand each other at the time. Because we were able to do that, like, publicly, we were able to make amends, and he was lore in our company, so when he came and stepped back in, half the employees didn't know who he was, and they were like, "Who is this guy?" And it was wonderful, right? He came
Yeah.
in seamlessly, it was beautiful.
How do you know all this stuff? Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was great, and then the other thing I would say is, like, you gotta own up to your own stuff early, and I had to go he had to apologize to me, and, like, 3 years later, I had to go back and apologize to him, and we were able to do that, but invest early in whatever you need, therapy, coaching. It's so easy to be angry at other people, but you really gotta own up to what you bring to the table. So,
Well,
it's my
thanks for
other
sharing that. These really hard things that, if you do it long enough, you're gonna come to some really hard personal, co-founder
Mhm.
challenges, the business changes. It's, these heavy decisions. That's the stuff we talk about in our practical founders peer groups there. But for listeners, founders who've been just doing a long time and they say, am I burned out? Right? It's kind of hard to tell. Like you had
Yeah.
Eric reflecting back. You could see it
Mhm.
in him and he could see it in you. Now that you have, helped each other and you have space from it, what does burnout look like that becomes not so useful for founders in the company? Like we can all feel the heaviness, but what's the difference between that and burnout?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Eric needs to tell his own story, but I'll say the one thing
Yeah.
for Eric is his burnout was very physical. He was very
Uh,
physically sick. My burnout also had physical symptoms. I didn't sleep. I put on 40 pounds. Stress ate, and so just you look bad. You're pale. You're sickly. That's like true, some true burnout. It also, for me, there's a difference between, like, the grind and the grit, and the stress. Like, you always feel the weight of the world, right? Because you're running this
mhm,
company. Like, that's kind of normal, I would say, as a founder. But what's not normal and what is unhealthy is when you're kind of catatonic in your decision making. And so for me, what burnout looked like while I was still leading the company is I couldn't find the energy to do anything other than if someone came to me and like, "I need a decision made," I'm like, "Okay, do this." But I was catatonic in terms of ideation or excitement, and that's your whole job as a
uh-huh,
CEO. Your whole job is to keep people excited, and I was a zombie. And so that's not grit, grind, working hard, stress. That's burnout if you're catatonic. I was really lucky in that I had a fantastic leadership team in place by that time. One of my beliefs was every year, level up your leadership team by someone new, just once a year, like
uh-huh,
level up your sales, level up your marketing, next level up this. And by that time, I had the best team. And I wish I had recognized earlier how great my team was and how I could rely on them because maybe I could have avoided some of that inability to do anything. But the weight gets to you after a while. And I think Greg, what do you say? I mean, you are running a peer group, and I would say that is part of the recipe to
yeah,
prevention,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
Coaching, peer groups, just anything to take away that need to be like perfect all the time and have all the answers and be something for everyone. Like, you're only human too. Like, founders,
Yeah,
be
it's
kind to
lonely, it's
yourself.
human, the weight
Yeah.
is with you, especially bootstrap founders, and you get it up bigger, so it seems easier as it gets bigger. Some things are, and other things are weightier, and there's all kinds of changes, the COVID punch in the face, the AI
Mhm.
change in market. Sometimes you're the 0 to 10 founder who struggles with the scalable operations and machinery and
Mhm.
factory, but in the peer groups, to just talk about it with people who don't report to you and not your investors and all of that. It's very lonely, so you can get it off your chest, the big questions, right? And
Yeah.
we do talk about burnout and the challenges there that get to people. And it's not about what Greg thinks, it's other people sharing their experiences when I went through that. So it's usually, I mean, talking about it and then hearing other people talk about it saying, almost everybody in the group has gone through a burnout phase,
Yeah.
right? And, "Oh, and I got through it there," and everybody does it differently, so you're it's not a template, right? It's one of the topics we talk about, but these are very founder-oriented companies. In the DNA
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
of culture and the leader at the top, the owner of the business. So, founder has a lot to do with it. The world changes and the founder doesn't change, that's another one that
Oh,
depends.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that's another thing, but, we're very human in the middle of all of this, and that's a big part of the benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ego blow. You keep hiring all these leaders onto your executive team, and they're all smarter and better than you, which is what you want. And then all of a sudden, you're like, "Should I still be here? Should I?" And
Yeah.
I think if I had the energy, I'd like to think I could have been the 10 to 50 founder as well,
Yeah.
but I just didn't. I just
Well,
didn't.
anybody, these CEO searchers and holding company acquirers and others that say we can buy a company and maybe or maybe not the founder will join us on the next part of the journey there. But they know that there's founders who say, I'm the starter, I'm
Mhm.
not the factory leader when it scales. I have been doing this 15 and a half years and I'm tired, right?
Mhm.
Or I had more fun when it was 10 of us in a room and not 100 of us. Or I'm excited about AI and I'm not excited about version 20.3 of our software. All kinds of reasons. So, we know, or my wife got sick, or a spouse got
Yeah.
sick, or
Yeah.
I'm tired, or I'm ready,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes we think we're gonna, sell it before we do, and then we're
Mhm.
5 years longer into this thing,
Mhm.
and get a
Triple the
little tired,
time.
kind of all those things. It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
typical there. But would you have benefited from a structured, confidential, organized, regular peer group like that of bootstrap founders who are going through the same journey?
Yes. And I we had coaches and, one coach
Yeah.
that was extremely impactful and helped me get through
Oh,
all the
great.
hard stuff. Here's the thing, and it's lonely. So for me, peer groups really help you to kinda get through some of those stickies. What I was missing in particular is I think what you said a second ago, is there something that happens where you change, and that change can maybe get you, like, to the next level, like, but the change is inside, and not everyone is open to change or ready for
That's
change or
exactly
ready to
right.
acknowledge
Mhm.
change, and so I think what was missing for me is after I sat in the therapy chair for a year, I realized, "Oh, like, this is my version of what change is," and if I had had that years earlier when I had energy, I think things could have gone a little bit differently, and so
There you go. Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can get that from I think you need them all, I guess what I'm trying to say. You need
Yeah.
the peer groups for the phone call, like, "Oh my gosh, help me. This is terrible. Who's done this before? I don't wanna feel alone." You need the coaching to come in and, like, see the dynamics, right? But I honestly think a little dose of therapy to go back into that
Yeah.
what the inner mechanics are is probably, the thing that's gonna help you personally get to the next
Yeah.
level.
Yes, and I think somebody working one-on-one with somebody to say, "You're not keeping up with the rising tide of your company and what it needs from you," right? And
Mhm.
which needs some new thoughts, some new skills, you kinda need to let go of startup founder and
Yeah.
embrace CEO, leader kind of thing. And, sometimes coaches can help with that, one-on-one, wrangle that out of you. Not everybody does that fluently, and most people don't know that that's part of the journey. You're changing spots every few years if you're growing fast enough. But I would say in the
Yeah.
peer groups, we can do that slowly. People can say, before I thought I was this, and then all these conversations we've been having, I've discovered that was holding on to something, and I really wanna do that. You get to change your mind. So these peer groups go on for years, so we get to know each other
Oh, I
and
wanna be in
hear
that
these
peer
things.
group.
Yeah. So it
You know what I also love about the peer group model
Mhm.
is the deconstructing of imposter syndrome, which I think just sits on
Yeah.
so many heads, and seeing that your peers are just regular humans too is so powerful. Like, it's so
Yes.
powerful because you just have I remember someone asked me like, "Well, what do you think a CEO looks like?" And I had this definition and they're like, "What? Like, why is that your definition of CEO? You basically define something you would never be. You could never that's not you." And so I
Yeah.
think those peer groups are really helpful in seeing
Yeah.
like we're all a little bit different and the key is like play to your strength. Like I'm
It's one of
operational,
the angles. It's as
you
opposed
know?
to a coach that might have a template and experience and a bunch of experience. But in a peer group, you can hear how culture is done that way or this way,
Yeah.
and intentionally and not intentionally and with different opinions, and you realize, oh, there's a whole palette. I can do this a whole bunch of different ways. Which
Mhm.
way do I want to do it? Which way do I want to be a CEO?
Yeah.
What is my
Palette is
path?
a great word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's by definition, you get to do it your way, if it works, but how's it working for you is the old question. Well, that's awesome here. What is TaskRay on the other side? Now you can look back. It's been a few years. Is it bigger, more enterprise? Mm, I don't know.
Yes.
Something?
It's
Yeah, I don't know. What is it now?
I think it is well, you gotta let the new owner tell his own story, but they're growing. I still see a few, familiar faces, like
There you
our
go.
original sales person is now like, a couple of, people we hired very early are now leaders, and I love to see the promote
Oh,
from
great.
within
Yeah,
and their
that's a
growth.
good sign.
I thought when we were bought that they were going to dismantle the onboarding and go back to project management big, and I think they
Big
might have.
market. Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they did and didn't. Like, if you look at their positioning now, they have leaned really into the onboarding and really into the complex side, and I love that because they're following where our stickiest customers were. The
Back on
stickiest
path.
customer yeah,
Mm.
so they're just I think they're a little bigger, a little meatier, little bit.
So you could say it's working for them, like,
Mhm,
bring in a CEO, go to the next phase, do some
mhm,
things that don't require the founder magic, but, like, operationalize or whatever to the next level and make it more valuable, presumably sell
mhm.
someday because there's investors, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, something like
yeah.
that.
I'm
Very
still on the
exciting.
cap table, so let's go.
Come
Come on,
on, right? You
TaskRay.
have a little piece in there, great. And I'm sure they're having all those interesting questions we talk about in our peer groups about what does AI mean for our product and for our inside our
Mm,
company and in the
mm,
market and how is onboarding change and all the rest
mhm.
of that kind of excitement that's going on here.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story, and some of the uh, the ups and downs of the game as always happens here. Blakely, what advice do you have for founders who come to you and maybe women founders, but
Mm.
that you're working with, if you want to focus on that. But what's the advice you give most often to founders when they say, "How'd you do it?" and "What should I do?" and you know, what what kind of thing can you share with practical founders out there?
Yeah, well, if you're a woman, you should listen to my podcast because we talk
There
about
we go.
all the hurdles that we go through as
It's fun.
women that are just a little
Yes.
different. Pay equity hurdles. People used to mistake, the guy I was standing next to as the CEO. And I'm like, why are people would be afraid to look you in the eye? Like, there's just a lot of just little unseen hurdles. So listen to my podcast if you want to talk about those hurdles. But for founders in general, I would say the 3 most impactful things this is, like, off the cuff based on our conversation, but,
Yeah.
like, just telling the story, focus, like, ask Greg to write his focus book because you need to read it. It's right? Focus is important, so important because it rallies the troops, puts in the guardrails. Um, know your values. Take the time to write them down and let them like, as a founder, people are attracted to you, and they wanna work for you. So, really, the power of a founder is to write down their values, not like the values anyone expects you to be,
Our founders'
like
values.
the
Right.
founder's
Yeah.
values.
Mhm.
So, write those, down. And then the last thing I would say, and probably the most important thing, and I swear founders can't hear it. They just can't hear it. You have to invest in yourself. The word self-care drives me crazy because that's what people told me for 10 years. "Self-care, what are you doing for self-care?" I'm like, "I don't know, leave me alone. I don't have time. I don't have time."
Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, sitting on the other side of it, like, invest in yourself, and it can be a peer group, it can be a coach, it can be therapy. Heck, for me, it's nature walks and going to the gym now,
Yeah.
and just do it because people want, like,
The
the
healthy, happy
founder
leader.
that want
Yeah.
will
Mhm.
stay. People don't want you to go, they want you to burn out. They
Yeah.
want your leadership, so you have to invest in yourself and don't feel guilty about it.
It's awesome advice. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story on the Practical Founders podcast. Blakely, all the best to you. And everybody should check out your Not All Business podcast.
Well, thank you, Greg. I love that you're doing this. By the way, one last thing. This did not exist when I was bootstrapping and a
Of
practical
course.
founder. So you
Right.
are a gift to this community.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Well, you're the gift. It's not me giving all the wise words today, but good for you. So really appreciate that. Thank you, Blakely.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes, and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com, or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.